Hey, hello again, everybody. My name is Christine Biglin. I'm with St. Mary's County Library in the Leonardtown branch. And tonight we are talking about fall bird feeding with Barb Whipkey, the owner of Wild Birds Unlimited with 2 locations, one in Lexington Park and LaPlata. So welcome, Barb. Thank you for joining us. And I'm waiting to hear about fall bird feeding.
Thank you. Okay, so fall bird feeding is a great time to be feeding the birds all year long, actually is. I know a lot of people take their bird feeders down in the summer, and we actually really discourage that. A lot of people feel that, oh, there's plenty of food out there in the summer. And actually, that is not quite true. If you're ever going to take your feeders down and take a break from feeding, the time you want to do that is going to be late September, early to mid-October. That's when things go to seed, and that is when food is a little more plentiful. And that's when most of our birds are done nesting. So they don't need as much help during those times. It used to be that people planted bigger gardens. There were a lot more natural food sources for the birds. But now we've come through, cleared out those gardens and put concrete jungles out there. And so there's less native plants and things out there for the birds. So really your bird feeders are helping the birds out. And of course, native plants, we preach all the time, helping. Native plants are a big help putting those out there. And you're going to see more birds in your yards when you add those native plants, a combination of native plants and your bird feeders. So, but fall bird feeding. We used to think, oh, you go to the store and you get a bird feeder and you just grab some bird seed and you put it out there and the birds come. And the more we've watched, the more we've learned. And we have found that some of those things that our grandparents did weren't quite exactly the way it is. And that some things have changed along the way. And when we know better, we do better. So tonight we're going to be talking about fall bird feeding and what you can do to get more birds at your feeder and a bigger variety of birds. If you go buy that bag of bird seed off the shelf, you are going to have some birds come. You may see a whole lot of plain Jane brown birds at your feeder, and you get pretty bored pretty quick looking at those birds. You may end up with a lot of house sparrows at your feeders or a lot of starlings, a lot of those parking lot birds that you just aren't necessarily the birds you want to see. But so by adding a bigger variety of foods, you're going to see a bigger variety of birds. So tonight we're going to talk about some different feeders that you can add that's going to bring you some different birds and different foods that you can add to bring those in. And then we're also going to cover the Finch report. If you're not familiar with the Finch report, that's a report that is done every fall where they look at the food situation, the natural food situation in the north to determine what our winter bird activity is going to look like. So we're going to talk about that a bit too. So first of all, let's talk about some different foods you can add to your lineup to increase the birds at your feeders. So the first one that we really want to push is peanuts. Peanuts, during the fall, birds need higher protein, higher fat foods. If you're feeding things low fat, low proteins, the birds have to eat more to build up that energy to stay warm on those cold nights. As the birds are shelling those food, eating that food, they're expending more energy. The more energy they expend eating that food, the more they have to eat. So it's this whole vicious cycle. The more energy they expend, the more they have to eat. So if you can give them high protein foods, it's a bigger bang for their bucks. So they're not going to use up as much energy to eat the food. And you're actually going to save yourself some money along the way too. So peanut splits are one good way to do this. This is just peanuts that have already been shelled and then they're split in half. hence the name peanut splits. You can put that in any regular feeder. You can put it in a tray feeder. One here. Tray feeders are a great source of feeding year round. Tray feeders you can create a whole smorgasbord in. I have several tray feeders going in my yard. And when I fill my feeders, I throw a little bit of everything in there. So when I fill a feeder, I'll take another partial scoop of whatever food and throw it in there. So it's going to have a whole smorgasbord of everything going on in there. So when I fill that peanut split feeder, I'm going to throw some peanut splits in that tray feeder as well. So this is the tray feeder, and then I've just got a weather guard on there. That's just going to help keep it dry. This is not a squirrel baffle, no matter what they tell you in some of those other stores. That is not going to keep a squirrel out of that. That's just going to help keep your seed dry. We do have squirrel-proof options. If you're going to feed those peanuts, you would want to have that on a pole system with a baffle on it to keep the squirrels from getting in it. Or you would want to use a feeder like this. This is our Squirrel Buster peanut feeder. So the birds would eat the peanuts from here. It's a weighted feeder, so when those squirrels hop on that, it's going to close. So if you don't have a pole system that's baffled, you can still feed those peanuts just by using this feeder here. So peanut splits are a great one to add to the lineup. Peanuts in the shell are another option. So this feeder just have peanuts, just regular peanuts in the shell there. This is going to be for your blue jays and your tufted titmice. Those tufted titmice are those little tiny gray birds with that little pop-up crest there. And you're thinking, how's that little tiny tufted titmice going to carry that? But they will. They will actually a lot of times pop a little hole in there and with their beak on the inside carry it. Blue jays, I have seen them carry up to 4 of these at a time. They will pop them end to end down their throat, and then the 4th one will go crossways in their beak and they'll fly off with it. Blue jays are extremely intelligent. They also get a bad rap. Blue jays are extremely intelligent. You'll also catch them coming to a feeder, picking them up, dropping them until they find the heaviest feeder or the heaviest peanut. When they find that heaviest peanut, that's the one they take off with. So peanuts, the blue jays get a bad rap because people have always said, oh, they eat the other birds. And they do. But so do your cardinals, so do your pretty sweet little bluebirds. It's part of nature. It's that whole survival thing. Blue jays are your guardians of your backyard, though. If you've got something trying to get into a bird nest out there, guess who's going to be the first to let you know there's a snake out there, or there's a hawk or an owl in your yard? It's going to be your blue jays that start sounding the alarm to call you and let you know there's something going on in your backyard. So actually bringing those blue jays in is just helping to build that level of your bird habitat back there. So bringing those peanuts into your feeding lineup is going to help to create that bird habitat in your yard. So as you're watching your feeders right now, you're going to see something a little different happening. You're going to notice the birds coming to the feeders and flying off, and they're going the same path. It's most common right now with blue jays, chickadees, titmice, nuthatches, and they're just at the feeders and they're back and forth flying the same path. They are caching away seeds we're familiar with squirrels storing away seeds and nuts for winter. Birds do the same thing. They're looking for those seeds in the shells, of which peanut's a great one, that they can store away for winter. They don't know that you're going to have that bird feeder out there for them all winter long. So nature's instinct for them is to store that seed away. They're going to take those shells, they're going to stick them in the little crevices of the bark of trees, fences, anywhere they can find, and store those away. Unlike those squirrels, they're going to remember where they put them, and they're going to be able to go back and get them this winter. Blue jays can actually hide their peanuts up to 2 miles away and still remember where they have put their peanuts. So with that said, as far as the birds storing away those foods with shells, if you are feeding our no mess blends, I love our no mess blends because I don't have those shells underneath my feeders attracting those moles and voles and all those other little critters. This time of year, I make sure that I have something out there with shells in it. Those shells are going to help protect those seeds from the elements. So they are looking for your black oil, your striped sunflower, things like that that have shells on them. So your typical black oil, you can put in any of your regular feeders. If you're looking for some fun feeders, you always bring in just a couple of fun style feeders. We've got right now this solar snowman and the cardinals, but you can put them in any two feeders. Again, tray feeders, throw some of them in that tray feeder, but black oil can go in any style feeder. My favorite to feed this time of year is our Tree Nutty Plus. So our Tree Nutty Plus is a mixture of peanuts, tree nuts, black oil sunflower, striped sunflower, raisins, and bark butter bits, which is a peanut suet nugget mix. So it's everything, high protein, high fat. So it's everything they need this time of year. So this is my go-to for caching season. Actually, I use it year round, but I just tend to put a lot more of it out this time of year to make sure it's available. I feed it in a tray feeder and a hopper feeder, and then I also use it in this feeder. This one is actually a peanut feeder. This is designed for that peanut split that I told you about earlier. You can put those peanut splits in there. I call this my woodpecker feeder because my woodpeckers nuthatches are all over this one. And I use that tree nut in it. I have a tray on it so that my cardinals and those birds that aren't able to cling, those blue jays, can all land on the tray and still eat from this one. So that's my go-to for that one. But again, I still use it in the tray. I still use it in a hopper. You can use it in a regular tube. That Tree Nutty can really go in any feeder. I find that those woodpeckers, because they tend to be clinging birds that are clinging to trees, by using a feeder like this, it replicates nature with which they're used to. So they seem to like that a lot. Another food is choice. So if you are feeding where there are dogs that can get to that feeder, you don't want to use that Tree Nutty I just talked about because of those raisins in it. Raisins are toxic to dogs. So I don't recommend that Tree Nutty if your dogs do go out and eat under that feeder. In that case, something like our choice, which has the safflower, still has peanuts in it, still has black oil in there. So it's still a great variety to be using. And then if you wanted with that choice, if you were going to use that and you still wanted, you could pop some of those bark butter bits in there as well, which is that suet nugget that I talked about. So you could still get some of that suet in there, but not have those raisins in there. So you're not risking any puppy dog's health. Another great one is Winter Blend. Winter Blend is packed with all of the high energy, high fat foods. If you have not tried this one, the birds absolutely love this stuff. This one goes like crazy at my house. All of our customers, we start hearing this in August and September. When is the Winter Blend coming? When is the Winter Blend coming? So the Winter Blend is a big hit. And again, it's the high energy, high fat stuff that they need. You can feed it in a tube feeder. You can feed it in a tray feeder. You can mix it with your regular seed. So it's kind of a supplement. You can feed it separately. You can use it anyway. There's no right or wrong way to use the Winter Blend. So that's a good one. If you have never fed with cylinders, cylinders are an easy way to feed. Cylinders are basically a formed seed with a hole in them, and then you just pop it right onto a feeder. Tends to last longer. This particular one is the Winter Blend. Again, if you're feeding on a pole system that is not squirrel proof, we have hot pepper options to keep those squirrels out of there. This time of year, if you need to use the hot pepper, I would recommend going with that cranberry hot pepper. That's a good mixture of the high protein, high fats in that hot pepper cranberry. And then of course, if you don't need the hot pepper, that Winter Blend is a great one. Our woodpecker is another high fat one. Regular cranberry is another good one. And then because it is migration season right now, so we are seeing a lot of birds migrating through. Those ones are just going to stop at our feeders, head on south. We have been seeing some rose-breasted grosbeaks, things like that coming through, a lot of warblers. I recommend getting some safflower out in your feeders. Those rose-breasted grosbeak love, love, love safflower. So you can either make sure that you have a mix that has some safflower in, or again, that old smorgasbord of a tray feeder. I can't preach enough how amazing tray feeders are. They really are amazing just to be able to throw a mixture in there. I have one tube feeder that has straight safflower in it year round. But then again, I always throw some safflower in that tray feeder when I fill those up. Safflower can also be a problem solver for you. This winter, when it snows and the snow stays on the ground for a while and all those blackbirds move in and take over your feeders, those blackbirds aren't able to crack safflower. It's a very hard shelled seed. Because those blackbirds have a gape in their bill, they're not able to crack it. So switching to straight safflower is a good way to get those to move on. That's a good option there. If you have not been feeding suet, you definitely want to get that suet back out the door now. You may be familiar with the little green cages that have been around since our grandparents have been feeding. Those are fine to use. This one's a little bit different. You'll notice it has this little piece hanging below. This is what we call a tail prop. When woodpeckers eat, they use their tail for balance. So a woodpecker is just going to cling here to the grid and use that tail prop for balance. And so you would just drop that seed cake into something like this. This particular one is made out of recycled milk cartons, made in the USA. comes apart so it can be washed. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, those green ones are perfectly fine to use as well. But definitely get suet out there. Regular suet's fine to use now during the summer months. We were using no melt. So if you were shopping in here, what you were getting was no melt. So it wasn't dripping down the side of your poles. Now we have switched out now that we're below 80 degrees again. So we're using regular suet, which is a much moister consistency. The birds do like it much better, but you're not going to have the issues with it dripping down your trees or down the side of your poles and that. Again, if you are feeding somewhere that is not squirrel proof, we still have a solution for you. Here, our suet comes in a hot pepper variety. And you can see it's pretty red and spicy. You want to use caution with any of our hot pepper products. I promise you it is very hot. I did a lot of the testing when they were creating a lot of these hot pepper products, and I can assure you they are pretty hot. So definitely use caution with any of these. We have loose seed and a hot pepper as well. So if you have a regular feeder that you want to put up in a place that's not squirrel proof, we have loose seed has nuts, peanuts and tree nuts in it as well. So you can still get that high protein in there as well. Another great one this time of year. Right now we're starting to see the yellow-belly sapsucker. There really is a bird called the yellow-belly sapsucker. If you've heard your parents use that term, my mom used to use that term all the time, calling us that, and we thought it was just a name she called us. I didn't know there was really a bird called that. But there is, and it's a woodpecker that comes and spends their winter with us. They are not typically a feeder bird unless they get pretty desperate. However, if you put bark butter on a tree, they will come. Because they are not real comfortable around people, if you spread this out on a tree, they will come to a tree. This particular one I have is hot pepper. We have it in regular too. So if you're putting it on a feeder on your pole system, or you are one of the few in the county that do not have squirrels, you can use the regular. Most of us feeding it on trees will need to use the hot pepper variety. But with the bark butter, you just use a fork, spread it right on a tree, leave those ridges, kind of like the peanut butter cookie, the top of those. The birds will pop right down and grab it. I've got one particular tree right outside my bedroom window, and I will see on that tree yellow-belly sapsucker, black and white warblers, brown creepers, all birds that I'm typically not going to see at my feeders. Also ruby-crowned kinglets. They're not, the ruby-crowned kinglets are a little more common at the feeders, but they're not regular feeder birds. But every morning during the winter, I can pretty much set the clock by it in the morning and expect to see them on that tree there for their bark butter. So bark butter is a pretty cool way to entice some birds in that you wouldn't normally get to see. So definitely check that out. Yeah, and then a few other foods. Just wanted to share, if you've been with us a few years, shopped with us for a bit, a few products that have come in that you may have been waiting for. Christmas blend is here now. We have a lot of customers that come in and buy this up and freeze it. The birds absolutely love this stuff. We can only get it during the holiday season. So Christmas blend has arrived. As well, a couple of our holiday characters have flocked in. Preston the penguin is here, and Buttons the snowman have arrived. So a couple of our holiday friends are here. If you haven't been in this week, they did get here. If you shop at our LaPlata store, they made it up there this afternoon. They may not be completely unpacked yet, but I would say by Chip's in the background here shaking his head no. I left early to get down here he was up there a little bit later, but he says, no, they're not completely unpacked yet. It was 2 big pallets, and the team worked really hard today, but they didn't all get unpacked, but they'll be unpacked. So if you stop in LaPlata and you don't see any, I know the Christmas blend made it to the floor up there. Preston and Buttons may not have, but you can ask the team and they'll be able to find them for you in the back and bring them out if you need them. So those are there. So a couple other things along with winter bird feeding, winter or fall bird feeding, is shelter for the birds. You may have noticed that all of a sudden that first cold morning we had last week, your bluebirds came back and started checking out your houses. They're not confused. They're not ready to start nesting. They are looking for a place to spend their winter. So if you have not cleaned out your bluebird houses from your spring and summer nesting, please do so tomorrow. You want to get those all cleaned out. Take any nesting material out. If they're really messy, you'll just want to kind of wipe those down a bit inside, prop it open, let it dry well, and then close them up. Bluebirds will live communally in a nest box. They will stack up on top of each other. 7, I've seen videos of up to 21 bluebirds living on top of each other in one bluebird house. Mine typically, I see 7 to 9 in mine. And you often don't see them. They go in at sunset, come out early in the morning. So unless you're an early riser and happen to catch them in the morning coming out of the box, you often won't see them. One way you can kind of trick the system and figure out if anybody's going in there is kind of like wedge a little piece of pine needle across the hole and see if it disappears by morning. In the evening, just kind of leg it across there and see if it disappears or gets knocked down overnight, and that'll maybe give you a clue that somebody's going in there. You can put a little bit of pine needle in the bottom for cushioning if you want once you've cleaned it out. I usually don't. I leave it up to them if they want to put something in there. Our winters here aren't usually that horrible, but I figure if they want something, they'll put it in there. So I leave that to them. So that's for the bluebirds. Our other birds, like our downy woodpeckers, chickadees, titmice, Carolina wrens, they're also looking for places. They do it a little bit differently. So Carolina wrens prefer to be up close to our houses. So you can offer them a place by something like a little roosting pocket. So just some little hut like this up close to your house. I have these hanging on my front porch, and for the last several years, they sleep in there every night year round. Even when the mama is nesting, she'll nest in a geranium next to it, and daddy every night will see him come land on the pot like he's saying goodnight to her, and then he goes in there and sleeps. When she's not nesting, the two of them will sleep in here together. Carolina wrens are one of the few songbirds that they stay paired up year round. Most of our songbirds, although they mate for life, during non-mating season, they go off and do their own thing. Carolina wrens do stay together. So offering them someplace close to your house, they'll actually spend their nights there. So you get to watch them, and we'll sit there in the evening like, oh, they're going to bed. And you'll see them. We have several pairs actually now we see going to bed at night. So this is one option. Another one that we have, we bring these in every few years. These are little felted pockets, and we have these in all different shapes and funny designs. And this one is a house, but we have everything from mushrooms to campers to taco trucks and circus wagons and everything with these. These are done through the Fair Trade Program, which assures that the people who are making these are making a living wage. They have a clean out pocket in them. so that you can open them to clean out. So if they would get messy, they have newspaper stuffed in them right now to keep them puffed up. They can be washed because they're felt. If they do get wet, they're pretty absorbent. They'll dry well. So these are kind of fun ones to hang around too. You can hang them under trees. But again, the Carolina wrens really would prefer it if you can hang them close to your house because they like to be close to our houses. So those are fun ones. And then another cool one is our bed and breakfast. So these ones are seed houses. They're covered with seed on the outside, and then inside is a wooden house. So obviously they can eat it, but inside they can use it for roosting. We have had several customers who have actually had bluebirds, chickadees, Carolina wrens raise young in the houses as well. It has a little metal hook up here so you can actually hang them up. So these are other good options that can be used for roosting, but then can be used later on for nesting as well. And this one can be used for breakfast too. So this one is what we call a roosting house. So this one, if you notice, it kind of looks like a nest box, but the hole is at the bottom. If you remember, we learned in science class way back that heat rises. So the hole is down here so that heat is going to stay inside the box when they come in here to roost. But when we open this one, you're going to notice that there's this cute little ladder in there. And this is going to give the birds a place to roost in there. So this is going to be where, as I talked, like our bluebirds just pile up on top of each other for warmth. Our birds like our chickadees, titmice, downy woodpeckers, they prefer to roost to sleep. So those birds will live communally in there at night, and they'll go in multiple ones and sleep on these roosts. But then the cool thing with this one is come spring, you can unscrew this door, flip that around so your hole's going to be at the top, and now you have a nest box. So you're going to just take your ladder out at that point. Truthfully, I recommend you put some kind of little hook back here, put your ladder there or on the side somewhere so you can find it come winter time. So you flip the door around. Now it's a bluebird or nesting box, a bluebird, chickadee, Carolina wren, titmice could all nest in this one. And then come fall, you're going to flip that door back around and drop your little roosting ladder back in there again. So that's what we call a roosting house. And we talked about if you didn't have a pole that was squirrel proof. So when we talk about a pole that's squirrel proof, the key to squirrel proofing that pole is you want to put that pole where you have 10-foot clearance all the way around it, because that's a squirrel's horizontal jump. Then you want to put that baffle 4 to 5 feet high, because that squirrel can jump from the ground straight up to 5 feet high. Now it sounds crazy, but if you spend much time watching them, you'll see that. So you want to think about that pole you have in your yard. You want to make sure the bottom of that feeder, when it's hanging, is at least 4 to 5 feet high, so you can put that baffle under it. If so, we can squirrel proof that pole for you. If not, if that pole's shorter, then we need to use things like those hot pepper cylinders, hot pepper foods, squirrel proof feeders. And this is just another one of those squirrel proof feeders that we have. So if you were using something like this squirrel proof feeder, you could still use that choice blend I showed you, in this one. You can use black oil in this one. You can also use that no mess. But this is one that would be squirrel proof, that would still allow you to feed, still allow you to use those high fat foods, but also allow you to use some of those foods that they can cache away. So that's another option. So you're not out of luck if you're feeding, if your pole system can't be squirrel proofed. Okay, so I teased you a little bit about the Finch report. So I'm excited to share that sadly, I guess I should say, for those up in the Northeast and for the birds in the Northeast, they're going to have to travel a little further south to find foods this year, which means we're going to have what they call an eruption year. So that means we're going to see birds, and we're already seeing them here, that we normally wouldn't have in the winter months. So the first little dude that has already showed up way early of what would normally we wouldn't even see these in the winter unless it's an eruption year. But our red-breasted nuthatches came early, and they have already been here and pretty plentiful. Should be spending the winter with us. If they were here 2020, they came and spent the winter with us, and people had a ball with these guys because they are not afraid of us. If you ever wanted to hand feed a bird, this is the best one to give it a shot at, because they are not afraid of you. The first time my husband and I ever saw one, we were literally both filling the feeders, and we were each on one side of a pole system hanging a feeder up, and this little bird flew in between us, and we both just froze thinking, oh my God, this bird doesn't know we're here. And so we both just stand there and freeze. And pretty soon we realized, okay, this little bird knows we're here. He just doesn't care. So red-breasted nuthatches are really cool. Often you're going to hear them before you see them. They sound like a dog's squeaky toy. You know, when the dog gets that squeaky toy and just will not stop squeaking it, that's what they sound like. So you're often going to hear them first. Red-breasted nuthatches, they're much smaller than our white-breasted. Obviously, the breast is going to be red, and then you're going to know for sure that's what you're seeing, because you're going to see that black line go through the center of the eye. But red-breasted nuthatches are already here, so watch your feeders. Love, 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 love peanut splits. So again, I can't preach it enough. Get some of those peanut splits out in your feeders. In the tray feeders, they will come to them, but they do love to cling to eat. So again, that one I was showing you that they like to cling to, or seed cylinder feeders they like to eat from, because they really like to cling when they eat. They're going up and down sides of trees all the time. So watch for those guys. They are out there already. So another one that again has come early. So quite often we have people come in and say, yeah, I have purple finches. If it's not winter, you don't have purple finches. You have male house finches. The only time you're ever going to see a purple finch is in the winter. You're not going to see it any time of the year other than winter. And then not that often unless it's an eruption year. So those finches that you have been seeing all year with the brown on it and the red, those are male house finches. That brown and white was the female. But now it's going to get a little trickier, because now we've got some purple finches in town. Mostly so far, I'm hearing from them in the south end of the county. Haven't heard too much from them yet further north, but they'll get to us. So we're hearing a lot. I'm going to show you this other picture, which is a little bit easier to see. These are the males. This one is the male house finch, and this is the male purple finch. At first, it's really hard to tell what you're looking at. But I promise you, the first time you ever really see a purple finch, you're going to know you really saw a purple finch. And from there forward, it will be no doubt. A purple finch looks like somebody took this little chocolate white striped bird and dipped it in raspberry sauce. Just dipped it in and pulled it out, because you're going to see the chocolate underneath. It's not going to look like the tan striped bird like this one. You're going to actually see the chocolate underneath that raspberry sauce. So the first time you see it, and it's also a rounder bird. This one's kind of puffed up, so that's not a great. In that case, this one's a little bit. Our house finches are more of a slender bird. The purple finch is more of a rounder bird. So, but definitely spend some time Googling the pictures of house finch versus purple finch. Spend some time looking at the difference of those two, so you're a little more familiar. The female, you're going to be able to tell, because the female, she's going to look like she has a parenthesis around her eye. The female purple finch will have a white line above and a white line below. But they're definitely, that purple finch is much rounder, where the house finch is a sleeker, thinner build. So definitely start spending some time just surfing the web, looking at some different pictures. You know, just Google All About Birds is a great site for that. But look, purple finch versus house finch. Blue jays, I talked about blue jays and building that blue jay population. If you don't have a great blue jay population, this winter is a good time to build one. There is a shortage of food in the Northeast for them, so there will be flocks of blue jays headed our way. So they're going to be looking for places to hang out for the winter. So this is going to be a good time to build up some more of a blue jay population. And of course, if you build up more blue jay population, it's kind of like if you're the yard providing the Kool-Aid, the neighborhood kids tend to gravitate to your yard. So start adding those peanuts out there. Originally, I had no blue jays in my yard. First time I started hearing blue jays, I started running out there yelling, Jay, 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 like a crazy woman, dropping peanuts on the deck for them. And every time I would hear the jays, I would run out there and drop them. Pretty soon, I started getting a 6:30 wake-up calls from the blue jays saying, hey, lady, bring us our peanuts. So definitely, if you want to get those blue jays in, this winter is a good time to do it. Another one that we're going to see this winter, not everybody will see this one, but it is going to be a repeat of 2022. So some of us will be lucky enough to see the evening grosbeak. So some of our customers were lucky enough to host them in 2020. So hopefully you'll be one of the lucky ones to get to see them. And as I mentioned, that safflower, they are a big safflower lover. So get that safflower out. They are often going to be seen at tray feeders. So getting a tray feeder out there again, I know I keep saying tray feeders, tray feeders. Tray feeders are a good one. Is that the red-breasted nuthatch? So he just got the sound of the red-breasted nuthatch. So we're going to see if you can hear it here. Bring that in. Can you hear that call? No, it's not coming through. Not a real accurate one anyway, but okay. So yeah, Google the sound for red-breasted nuthatches as well. Again, go to All About Birds and listen for red-breasted nuthatch sound, because like I said, you're often going to hear that one before you see it. So allaboutbirds.com, and that's where you're going to look for, if you just look up purple finches, it'll have a section down there where it'll show you other birds that look similar to it. So it's going to automatically point out the house finch. But then on red-breasted, I want you to listen to the sound of the red-breasted nuthatch, because I'll bet some of you are going to walk out in your yard tomorrow and listen and hear that you already have red-breasted nuthatches out there. So then evening grosbeak, make sure you have some safflower mixed in some of your feeders, either one feeder that just has safflower or a tray feeder that you're putting some safflower in there. Pine siskins we may see this year as well, but if you see them, it just doesn't matter. They will just eat everything that you offer. They'll eat your sunflower, sunflower chips, sunflower in the shell, out of the shell, your Niger. They're not particular, and they will come and bring all of their cousins and their extended family and everybody. So you won't have to do anything extra to get them to your feeders. They're going to look very similar to house finches, except they're going to have a little bit of gold trim on their wings, and their beak will be more pointed, where the house finch is more of a conical shaped beak. They're going to have a pointed beak. So basically what I'm telling you is this is going to be one of the best winters ever for bird feeding. So now's the time to make sure that those feeders are clean. You have a good variety of foods out there. So when they come flying through and look for a place to hang out for the winter, they choose your yard. Make sure you've got a bird bath out there with fresh water in it, either a heated bird bath or be prepared during the really cold, freezing weather to change that water regularly. Okay, with that said, what questions do you have for me?
And if anybody does have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat so we can see them. I have a few I was jotting down while you were talking. Oh, just a clarification. You were talking about one of the bird foods, and you said black oil. Now that's the black oil sunflower seeds.
Black
right?
oil sunflower. Yeah, I kept trying to catch myself. Yeah, so we shorten it. Black oil is black oil sunflower. So that's the shiny sunflower. But yeah, it's a black oil sunflower. There's a black oil sunflower and a striped sunflower. The black oil sunflower is a higher fat. So higher energy, higher fat. So it's a better one to be feeding during the winter. And that's the one that you would use like in these type feeders. You see not only these type, but when I show these, there's a lot of other mesh feeders that you see at other stores out there. So if you have any of those mesh style feeders like this with the little diamonds in them, that's the type of seed you're going to use in those is black oil sunflower.
Okay, because that's sized enough. It's sized right,
Exactly.
so it'll go through the mesh. Okay.
Right.
All right. Elaine asked, how do you feel about homemade suet cakes?
Oh, that's a tough one. So yeah. So you want to be really careful with that. Yeah, I would just be really cautious with that. I personally just cannot back it because I don't know how the suet's being handled, how it's being processed. So yeah, I personally can't promote it.
Okay, let's see. We have a family of doves that park in our tray feeder all day. Is there a way to get them to move on?
Yeah, so that can be a pain. If, obviously going out, shooing them off, usually they're coming like right at sunset, I would assume. And if they're doing that at sunset, what I would do is go out and put a box or something in it shortly before sunset so that they're looking for a place to roost for the night. So if you can put a box or something in there just to block that space, right at sunset. Do that for a few days. Usually they'll find a new roosting spot and move on.
Okay.
And then the other thing is to make sure the type of food you're using, make sure you're not using anything with any Milos, basically the round seeds. If your food has any of those round balls in it, you don't want to be using it. That's what I was mentioning with just grabbing that bag of seed wherever, because that's that kind of seed that's going to attract the sparrows, the doves, starlings, those type of birds.
That the little
So
grass
stay
seed?
away from.
The little
I'm sorry?
grass seed is little round grass seed. Is
Yeah,
that
exactly.
What
So,
you're talking about?
yeah, so those brown balls are actually just fillers. That's not even foods that our songbirds eat. So those brown balls are just fillers that those companies put in it. So that gets thrown to the ground. It grows you a nice weed patch. The squirrels thank you for that. It will bring in those unwanted birds, like those sparrows, the ones that kill the bluebirds, those type of birds. The turkeys will come along and eat those. But yeah, you want to avoid any of those brown balls. Those are not bird food. That's just filler seeds that make it look like you're getting a better deal.
Thank you.
But even the white seeds, is the little round white ones, is millet. We have low millet in some of our blends, but if you come in and tell us that you're having problems with sparrows or you're having problems with mourning doves perching, we're going to direct you away from millet because that's like candy to those birds. So we're going to stay away from those foods.
Millet, is that what you said? Millet?
Millet, yeah. So that's not necessarily a bad food, but if you're having problems with some of those birds, it's a bad food for your house.
Thank
So
you.
we have several customers that we have notes in there. Make sure they don't get seed with millet in it.
Great. Thanks.
Uh-huh.
Laura said she's recently seen the red-bellied woodpecker going back and forth from the feeder to the woods with the peanut splits. Is he caching them, or is that how they like to eat them?
Yes, good catch. Yep, that's exactly what's going on. In the spring, when you see them doing it, then they're feeding young. But this time of year, he is storing it away somewhere. And the other thing, if you watch, it's pretty cool to see happen is you may see him like on a mission, boom, 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 back and forth. And then all of a sudden he may pop over to your nomass or to your suet and sit there and eat a little bit and then go back to work. So you just watched him take his lunch break and now he's back on the job again. So it's really cool to watch. I did this talk at the Garvey Center the other day, and some of our customers came in this week and they were like, oh my gosh, we watched it happen and you are so right. So it's cool when you actually can really see it happen.
I actually had the same question. It's a question about where to hang the wren houses. So do they need to be a certain height?
They do not. No. So when I take down hummingbird feeders on my front porch, I add extra wren pockets there because, like I said, our wren population has grown. So I hang them there. People will hang them from porch lights, anywhere near the house. Some people will use we've got little suction cups, hangers that can be hung right on your windows. They'll hang them there, but they really prefer to be close to our houses, but no particular height.
And should they be a certain distance away from your feeder, or does that also not matter?
That one really doesn't matter because they're sleeping in them at night and nobody's eating from the feeders at night. Unless you have raccoons. And then hopefully you have a raccoon baffle on there.
Is that the same as the squirrel baffle, or does it need to be?
It is
something different?
not. The raccoon baffle is about 3 feet long. So a squirrel baffle is short enough that a raccoon, because they have those little thumbs, can grab a hold of the bottom and swing right to the top, where the raccoon baffle has to be much longer. The nice thing is the raccoon baffle will keep both squirrels and raccoons out of it. I always tell people, if you, Chippas, you want to just hold those up here? So here's the squirrel one, and then here's the raccoon. So I always tell people, learn from my mistakes. I put all squirrel baffles on all 11 of my bird feeding poles, and then the raccoons came. So then I had to buy all raccoon poles or raccoon baffles and change them all out. So if you are in a treed area with woods around, I just recommend going straight to raccoon baffles, because even though you don't see those raccoons, they're coming out at night when you're sleeping.
Do you have to worry about putting the roosting boxes out too late? Like, do the birds pick a place to live and then they won't change their mind? Okay, anytime is fine.
No, yeah, it was really funny because I happened to be working at home that first cold morning. And that first cold morning, it was pretty obvious that everybody was like, oh my gosh, we got to start looking for winter housing. It was like somebody flipped the switch. But no, they'll continue to look, and as it continues to get colder, they're going to look harder. And but like I said, we've got those other birds coming from the north. So even once houses are found and claimed, there's more coming. And so even, just if you have bird houses up, that's why I said, go ahead and clean those out. Because if you don't have enough, if there's not enough roosting houses out there, they'll use regular bird houses too. So they're going to use whatever they can to take shelter.
Okay. And I am not sure if you mentioned it and I missed it or not, but I just wanted to go back to the hot pepper foods. Why is it that those deter the squirrels?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So birds have different taste receptors than mammals. So they do not even realize that it's hot. And if you ever watch a garden as it's drying up, you'll see birds out there picking at your hot pepper plants. So it's a great alternative if you live in an area where there's too many trees and you don't have that space to put a pole system that we can properly baffle, or you have a small yard, whatever, then hot pepper foods are a great alternative. Or if you're trying to feed off of a deck. So some of my feeders are in locations where off of decks and fences and that, where I can't squirrel proof them. I can't put a baffle. So I use a combination of both, or window feeders. I have a lot of window feeders going on too. So I use all hot peppers on all the hot pepper foods there. So it works amazingly well.
That's great. Okay, well, we're actually right at the end of our time. So I just want to mention the next program that we have coming up. We're skipping December because it's just a busy time generally for everybody. So the next program that we do is going to be January 12th. And that is going to be talking about creating a winter refuge for the birds. So I think you'll expand a little more on a couple of things you touched on today.
Right.
Okay, well, I don't see any more questions in the chat. So I think we covered it. And thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate you setting some time aside to join us. That can be a busy time. So thank you. And thank you, Barb. You always have a lot of great information to share with us.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.